What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Tons of options out there. Truly appreciate you making us part of your day, my friends. A huge thank you to the Carolina Panthers for giving us the VIP treatment at training camp over the weekend. If you did not see my time with Frank Reich, you will find it on the Fan Upstate on Twitter. You'll find it on the Fan Upstate on Facebook. Had a chance to speak to Frank Reich, new Carolina Panthers head coach. Here's how you guys can take part in the show. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. Coming up on the show today, Clemson and South Carolina's best and worst case scenarios for 2023. What is one false narrative your rival pushes about your school? Our ACC and SEC team preview series continues today with Lawton Swan on Clemson. How about that? Folks, I can't believe that something that happened last week isn't anything and everything everyone's talking about. That's coming up at 4 o'clock p.m. today. A few folks have asked me to discuss a rumor involving Clemson that could come to roost tomorrow. We will do that at 4:20. We've got Chris Phillips on the Gamecocks recruiting struggles. We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got an onsides and offsides that is frankly ticking me off. And we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere today, my friends. All right. Folks, let us open with this. In your heart of hearts, and honestly, I don't really trust you guys on something. Okay? I don't. You guys have to trust that I'm going to work as hard as I can on the show, and you're always going to get that, right? And I'm always going to be honest with you. I'm always going to be truthful to you. Those are the two things that we always believe we owe you when you tune into our show. Honesty, right? And that we work as hard as we possibly can to make the show the best that we possibly can, right? We always want to give you that here on the show. But I do not trust necessarily that you guys can be unbiased with us. You have not shown a propensity to be able to do that, right? The proof of that is when we did the segment a few weeks ago, what is one tradition you would steal from another team in college football? Neither Clemson nor South Carolina fans were willing to admit that they wanted anything at all from their rival.
That's not true. That's not true, Mark. We had a a Clemson fan stole Sandstorm from Clemson.
Oh, we had one. Okay, yeah, that's one out of thousands.
I'm just saying that as a Clemson fan admitting that Sandstorm is cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It is cool, but the reality is this, guys. Both Clemson and South Carolina have a ton of great traditions. A ton of great traditions. When UCF went to Clemson and swept them in baseball this year, they wanted to run down the hill. I have wanted to run down the hill at Clemson. The entrance with the buses pulling up to the stadium. You see the cameras pan from outside the stadium to inside the stadium. That is one of the most badass traditions in all of college football. You line up, the crowd goes nuts. There's a little video display. Team runs down the hill. That is awesome. Sandstorm is pretty damn cool. The rooster is a little bit damn annoying, okay? But there's a lot of things that are really cool about what both teams do that we cover here in the upstate. So what we want to do here to open the show is we want to hit you with the honest to goodness best and worst case scenarios for Clemson and South Carolina. Okay, Clemson and South Carolina, best and worst case scenarios. My worst case scenario for Clemson is 9-3. How would they hit the worst case scenario? What would have to happen if Clemson were to fall to 9-3? That's the absolute worst case scenario. All right. And this is not meant to be a slight at South Carolina, but, well, in a few minutes, I'm going to explain something different to you that you may not like. The worst case scenario hits for Clemson if it takes Cade and Garrett Riley quite a bit of time to gel. If it takes them longer to gel, if it's not a fast holding gel, right? If it takes them quite a long time to gel, if they don't hit their stride till mid and late season, well, you got Florida State in the month of September. And some are saying Duke could be an improved enough team recruiting-wise under second-year coach Mike Elko to give you some trouble in week one. But if Cade Klubnik is not what he's advertised to be, like DJ Uiagalelei was not what he was advertised to be, then Clemson could lose to Florida State. Clemson could lose to Notre Dame, and Clemson could lose on the road at either Miami, North Carolina State, or South Carolina. All right? So I'm going to say 9-3 is the absolute worst case scenario for Clemson. Best case scenario is 12-0. There is not a single game on the schedule, folks, that any fan of any team that is opposing Clemson would say Clemson can't win that game. If you're a Florida State fan and you're saying Clemson can't beat the Seminoles at home, like at Clemson in Death Valley, shut up. Shut up. No idea what the hell you're talking about. If you're a Notre Dame fan and tell me that Clemson can't beat you in Death Valley, really? If you're a Gamecock fan and are going to tell me Clemson can't beat you at South Carolina, they're going to be favored to win that game. Any team favored to win can absolutely win said game. But that, to me, would represent the worst-case scenario for Clemson in 2023. Best case, again, 12-0. Again, each and every one of these games is winnable. Every single game on this slate is winnable. And if I might add, Clemson is going to be favored in every single one of their games. Now, that doesn't mean they are going to win every game. You know, Kelly Ford will tell you about something called binomial probability. You know, Clemson's got like an 80% chance to win this game, 90% chance to win this game. You add it all up, Clemson will win 10 or 11 games, but they'll lose one. They'll be favored in every game, but what are the odds that every single favorite comes up roses, right? Very, very small. We understand that outliers do happen, right? Murphy's Law happens. So I've got Clemson Diesel with a best case scenario of 12-0 and a worst case scenario of 9-3. Now, if you actually say to yourself honestly, how many losable games are on Clemson's schedule? The number's a little higher. Florida State, Miami, NC State, Notre Dame, North Carolina, at South Carolina. There might actually be 6 losable games on Clemson's schedule, which is half the schedule, which since I've been here, there haven't been that many losable games on the schedule. But in terms of what is actually the worst case scenario, I just don't see them losing more than half of those games. You know, is Duke losable week 1 at Duke? I don't think so. Florida State at home is losable. Clemson at Miami is losable. At Miami, that's losable. At NC State is losable. Notre Dame is losable. At South Carolina is losable because it was losable at Clemson. And you're playing Drake May. Okay, like I understand you beat him in the ACC championship game, but that is a losable game. That said, Diesel, I'm going 12-0 best case. I'm going 9-3 worst case. What say you?
I think worst case scenario is that Cade Klubnik does not pan out to who we think he's going to be. He does not reach out to his expectations. We see more of what we saw towards the end of the season last year. And again, I don't think this is likely. I'm just talking worst case scenario. Then you've got 2 years in a row with a quarterback controversy. Christopher Vezina is asked to step in and play a lot more than anyone expects him to this early in his tenure at Clemson. And then you've got 2 years in a row with big-time quarterback controversy. And then you've got people saying, well, can Dabo recruit quarterbacks anymore? What's going on in this system? Again, I don't think any of this is very likely at all, but it is possible.
So what's the record?
Worst case scenario, I think Clemson without doing the game by game, because I didn't know we were doing this. 8 wins. Wow. 8 wins is probably worst case.
Wow. Okay. So 8-4. 8-4. Diesel says is the worst case scenario. I think I actually think that's worse than reality. Excuse me. Choking on a splinter over here. Take over for a second, Diesel.
Yeah. So, guys, don't forget that we are pumping our podcasts all over the state of South Carolina. We look at our numbers every single month, and we see that Columbia is listening to us in big numbers. That Charleston, that Myrtle Beach, that Rock Hill, Charlotte, they're all listening to us. It is your responsibility. We need your help. This is us begging, hat in hand, for your help. We need you to help us grow this show. So do us a favor. Next time you see us post a podcast on Facebook or on Twitter, share it to a friend of yours. Share it to somebody who maybe they'll love it. Maybe it's going to piss them off. Either one of those, great for numbers, regardless. So share it out to people. Tell people that they need to follow us, to subscribe to us across whatever podcast platform it is that they use. Help us blow this thing up.
Best and worst case scenario for South Carolina. All right, South Carolina's best and worst case scenario. Now, to me, honestly, outside looking in, this is what's so fascinating. I've got a worst case scenario for Clemson that's 9-3. All right, 9-3. I would say the following. Then this is the part that Gamecock fans are not going to like. The best case scenario for the Gamecocks is identical to the worst case scenario for Clemson. And that's, look, if you're a Gamecock fan, I don't expect you to like that. Remember, though, that South Carolina plays in the SEC and Clemson plays in the All Cupcakes Conference. Like, if once you accept that, once you acknowledge that, once you realize that, then it's not so bad to say the best case scenario is the same as their worst case scenario.
And Clemson fans, why don't you just appreciate that you have an easier road to the conference championship, an easier road to the playoff, and to a national championship? Enjoy it. Embrace it. Because you go to the SEC, you go to the Big Ten, man, it becomes so much more of a gauntlet, and it is tough to get there.
And I'll tell you guys something else, man. Look, I think South Carolina has a huge difference, right, in terms of best and worst case scenarios. Why? Well, because the analytics, as we discussed last week, are saying that the Gamecocks are a 5 or a 6 win team, 5-7 or 6-6. ESPN's Football Power Index puts them right in the middle of that. 5.5 wins, 6.5 losses. That's 5-7 or 6-6, right? So the top 25, the poll voters, though, are saying that the Gamecocks are absolutely a top 25 team. As a matter of fact, North Carolina, South Carolina, week 1 is supposed to be a top 25 battle. So they're saying that the Gamecocks are going to be at least 8-4 by the time that the season is over. One of them is wrong. So who is it? Well, when I've done my record prediction for South Carolina, it comes out 7-5. But I actually believe the worst case scenario is 5-7. 5-7 would include losses to North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, Texas A&M, Kentucky, and Clemson. Wins in the 5-7 slate would be over Furman, Mississippi State, Missouri, Jacksonville State, and Vanderbilt. That's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario for the Gamecocks, again, I think is 9-3. How do they end up at 9-3? Well, you win the vast majority of the 50-50 games, right? You win the vast majority of the 50-50 games. You lose to Georgia, you lose to Clemson, and you probably lose at Tennessee. But you win all of the rest of the games. You win all of the rest of them. 9-3 would mean you beat North Carolina and Charlotte, Furman, Mississippi State, Florida, Missouri, at Texas A&M, which I'm predicting them to do, Jacksonville State, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. You're winning all those games. You're winning each and every one of the 50-50 games. So, yeah.
Am I reading J.D. Wyatt on YouTube? Am I reading your prediction here correctly? If you lose to North Carolina, Furman will also beat South Carolina? Is that what you're predicting? I don't want to misconstrue here, but that is a bold prediction. If South Carolina loses to North Carolina, they will also lose to Furman.
Coming up next on the show, we have got a juicy rumor to share with you about Clemson. Does it have any legs? That is next, and this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. To all the folks in on the YouTube chat, hope you had a great weekend. You can see, I'll be on your lobster roll. I got baked over the weekend, man, and I wasn't even featured in Dazed and Confused. JD Wyatt, Dalton Tangeman, Marion 26, DB, Dan B, Brandon Keeler. Great to see you guys and many others in the YouTube chat here to start the show. When we say YouTube chat, we mean the YouTube feed, the YouTube stream. We are up live on YouTube right now as well. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube stream yet, please do. Whether you intend to, watch the show on YouTube or listen in your car, it's very, very helpful to us if you subscribe. All you got to do, very simple, click a button. Go to YouTube on your phone, put in the Fan Upstate, click the subscribe button. It would really, really, really help us out a lot. Thank you guys very, very much. So there is a rumor that was obtained by Scoop City that the Big Ten will add Washington, Oregon, Florida State, and Clemson this week. And over the last 3 hours, I have been asked to address this by multiple people. Multiple people. I'm getting DMs. I'm getting tweets. Mark, will you address this? Are you going to talk about this on the show today? The answer is, of course. So let me tell you what I'm not going to do. All right? Because I have been the source of a lot of scoops around here. And you guys have seen that about every single scoop that this show has put forth has appeared more and more and more accurate as time has gone by. What I am not going to do is crap on the dude with the scoop, okay? Because I understand that just like I don't report, the person who has the scoop is not reporting. They talked to somebody that had a piece of information and let them know that this could be coming down the pike. Maybe their source is right, maybe their source is wrong, but I'm not going to crap on the source of the scoop. There is a legit rumor that the Big Ten Conference could add Clemson, Florida State, Oregon, and Washington this week. What do we make of that in any way, shape, or form? Well, folks, I give a lot of credence, and if this dude is right, I will give him a lot of credit. I do not see Clemson panicking and jumping ship to the Big Ten. I see Clemson waiting for a bid to the SEC. Because I know that Clemson realizes that they are either 1A or 1B on the SEC's wish list should they need to expand. Now, you guys might remember the scoop that I had on August 2nd, 2021, which will be 2 years ago on Wednesday, was that Clemson and Florida State had reached out to the SEC about joining the conference. The SEC did not believe they had streaming numbers. They had streaming numbers that they didn't already have with South Carolina and with Florida. They didn't give them markets they didn't already have. That is the SEC's belief. If they were going to add one team at that time, it would be Notre Dame, right? But they felt like Notre Dame was the only team at that time that added to the pot. So I still believe that's true. I believe that any conference would add Notre Dame if Notre Dame would sign on to said conference. But then we would totally be saying goodbye to the geography that makes college football unique and special, to the regionality that makes college football unique and special. Furthermore, if the Big Ten added Florida State, for instance, Florida State would be within 800 miles of exactly one league opponent. 800 miles. You know, like how much is Iowa, Northwestern, Rutgers, Troy, and Clemson worth to fans who do not see the TV dollars? There's no rivalry there. Ask West Virginia fans how they feel about traveling to Lubbock, Texas to play Texas Tech, right? How do you feel about that? So my hunch is that whereas the Big Ten represents an improvement over their current situation for Clemson and Florida State, I just see both because of what's culturally the better fit for them, aligning their values with the SEC is more likely to happen? Diesel, if you said to me right now, if the question that we're asking Clemson fans, at some point, will you be a member of the SEC? At any point, at some point, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, will you be a member of the SEC? I believe the answer to that question is yes. And because of that, I'm not accepting any of this Big Ten talk now.
The problem, Mark, is that you are thinking about this with logic. You are thinking about this from a rivalry standpoint. You are thinking about this from a proximity standpoint. But nobody who wears a suit and a tie and has more than 6 digits in their bank account and runs a conference thinks this way. They just don't. It doesn't make any sense. It is asinine. It is ridiculous. But that's not the way they think. They think from a market standpoint. They think from a market strategy. And where the Big Ten is concerned, they're thinking, ooh, we could add Clemson and Florida State. We could get 2 Southern football powerhouses. A little shaky on the word powerhouse with Florida State. Put it in air quotes, but the future seems bright down there in Tallahassee. And it also looks at it from the perspective of the SEC may not value gaining additional market share in 2 states that they already have fairly sizable market share. To me, it's more valuable, Mark, to have 70% of the football-loving viewers in the state of South Carolina by having both Clemson and South Carolina. And the same for Florida, having 66% of the football-loving fans in the state of Florida by having both Florida and Florida State. But suits don't think that way. They think about new markets. They think, how can we get a foothold in the state of North Carolina? We don't have anybody there right now. Could we get North Carolina? Could we get NC State? Could we get Virginia? That's the way they think. I think it sucks. I think it's obtuse, and I think it's killing off a lot of what made college football special. But they don't give a rat's ass what makes college football special. They care about what makes them money. And if the SEC wanted to pursue a strategy of chasing down new markets, then they're not going after Clemson and Florida State, which would mean the Big Ten should make a move on Clemson and Florida State first. Again, I don't like it. I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of people who wear really, really expensive shoes.
Let's hear what you guys are saying on the text line this afternoon. JD Wyatt says, Mark, cheers from vacation. I stay listening. Gamecocks could very well be 3-9 this year. I pray not, but very possible. I don't think so, JD Wyatt. Like you are saying that the only games South Carolina wins are the games they have 0% chance of losing, right? Jacksonville State, Vanderbilt, Furman. Those are the only games they're going to win the entire year? Really? I don't see that. Texter says, as an SEC fan, I would definitely be okay with adding Clemson and Florida State. I don't dispute that the Big Ten would want to add Clemson and Florida State. I dispute that that Clemson and Florida State would accept that bid. All right, that's my dispute, because I think they're going to wait for that SEC bid because that is their dream conference. They believe they're ultimately going to get that bid, and I agree with them. I'm going to ask you guys this question. Hit us on the text line 71307. Will Clemson ever be a member of the SEC? What do you think? Diesel, can we put that on the poll?
I think you're greatly downplaying the impatience to make more money that rich dudes who have power have.
Yeah, maybe.
They are impatient. They are not a bunch that is known for sitting back for another 5-10 years, hoping that they'll eventually get what they want.
We're going to put the poll on Twitter, folks.
It's not Twitter anymore. It's X.
Oh, whatever. You think I'm going to follow that idiot's rules? You know,
they've changed everything now. The logo has changed. The colors haven't entirely changed. Right now, what was the tweet button, the text has been changed to the word post, but it's still Twitter blue.
It's very, very odd. Okay, so guys, so text us. Let us know what you think. Will Clemson ever be a member of the SEC? 71307 on the text line. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. The answers are very simply yes and no, and I am posting it right now. Will Clemson ever be an SEC member? It is now posted. You guys can vote and let me know what you think. Okay, I'm saying it's going to happen. If I'm wrong, it will be exactly for the reason that Diesel said. They're impatient to make more money. They need to make more money yesterday, and they're not willing to wait around for that SEC bid. The rumor is that could go down tomorrow. Do I think it is? No, I do not. Am I going to crap on the guy with the scoop? No, I do not, because I'm a guy that has scoops, and I think it sucks when people do that. My personal belief is Clemson and Florida State will wait for an SEC bid. 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us. Coming up next, we, my friends, will continue our ACC and SEC team preview series. We've got Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk on Clemson Football Preview 2023 joining us next right here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Wonderful to have you guys with us on a Monday edition of the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your day. Diesel and I got some sun this weekend. For me, it was both days. Diesel, there is a once-a-year burn that I get, and it's always like when the skin has not been tanned in quite some time. And once you make it through like today and tomorrow, which frankly suck, and you're essentially bathing in aloe, right? Then you never get a burn again the rest of the year. At least that's what it's like as an Italian.
You know, it's funny. There's a red flag behind you, and you blend in so well with that red flag. Your face is red.
It is, man. It is.
The stream doesn't quite show it, but in person, Mark's face is much redder than it is on the stream.
Thank you, stream, for hiding that very, very nicely. We were in the sun at Carolina Panthers training camp Saturday for a long stretch of the day, and had some pool time yesterday. So each and every day, as you guys know, we do our ACC and SEC team preview series. And a frequent guest of ours during the season joins us right now for our one-segment Clemson football preview. Now, in fairness, as you guys know, we're essentially previewing Clemson football much of the offseason, but we like to bring on a registered expert from every single team. And we do so today with our main man, Lawton Swan, who joins us right now on the show. Great to catch up with you, Lawton. Really good to see you at ACC kickoff last week. I'd like to open, Lawton, with this. We were doing best and worst case scenarios for Clemson and South Carolina on the show today. I said best case scenario for Clemson is undefeated. I understand the odds say they'll win 10 or 11 games, but they're going to be favored in every single one of their games. So if you're favored in every game, you can certainly win every game. I think best case scenario is 12-0. I think worst case scenario is 9-3. And I say that, Lawton, despite the fact that I do actually believe there are 6 losable games. Florida State, at Miami, at NC State, Notre Dame, North Carolina, and South Carolina. I just don't see Clemson losing all those games, Lawton. So best case 12-0, worst case 9-3. How did I do?
Yeah, I think you're good on the potential undefeated. I mean, if you look at it this past season, right? If Clemson's defense had played up to the expectations that Wes Goodwin probably had for himself as a first-year defensive coordinator, you know, they probably make the college football playoff. Instead, they had some hiccups along the way and fall short. Then flip it to the offensive side of the ball, which you and I know at times with DJ Uiagalelei couldn't get out of its own way. And if the belief is that bringing in Garrett Riley is going to spark this offense to, incredible numbers, then even some deficiencies on the defensive ball should be masked. And I would agree with you. I think that 12-0 and undefeated in the regular season is doable for Clemson. I think that early matchup with Duke is one that people are kind of underrating because of their quarterback, Riley Leonard, who was a heck of a guy, throws for nearly 3,000 yards a year ago, 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And obviously that program in Durham believes in Coach Elko and the job that he did in year one. So we'll see, how that goes, just kind of being that early season opportunity where funny things happen. The ball can bounce, in a weird way. So maybe there's 7 games on that schedule where Clemson could trip up, but I'm with you. I kind of lean in that, if they get past Florida State, then the last kind of quote unquote hurdle is likely to be Notre Dame. But there are games there that are no doubt about it, Mark, are games that Clemson could lose.
Lawton Swan joining us here on Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, the Fan Upstate. People are always wanting to kind of gauge, Lawton, where the current quarterback is going to be. We've got a very clear medal stand, Lawton, in terms of all-time quarterbacks. Taj is the bronze, Trevor is the silver, Deshaun is the gold at Clemson, right? I mean, those are the medals voted by Clemson fans. So, do you believe Cade, however premature it may be, has at least a chance to enter that medal stand? Asking you this, Lawton, because I asked Garrett Riley about this, and he says Cade Klubnik has, quote, an elite skill set.
Here's where he would struggle, in my opinion, to get there. And look, I'm not trying to put myself above, Garrett Riley's belief system. But what happens is Taj Boyd falls into this realm of the guy that kind of propelled Clemson to where they are today and never reached the finish line that Trevor and Deshaun did by hoisting a national championship. So there's this beloved kind of vibe that surrounds Taj Boyd that Clemson fans have, because he's the guy that never got to hoist the trophy, but lifted and elevated the program. And the thing that Cade can't ever really get is that he can't be the guy that elevated the program to that national prominence. So that's one of the things that is kind of in his way. If he doesn't get a national championship, I think regardless of numbers he puts up, I don't know, Mark, that people would view him above Taj Boyd. I mean, he would have to put up incredible numbers over the next 3 seasons in order to even come close to catching Taj. So from that standpoint, that's where I'll leave it. I think to push into that conversation and be on that, that pedestal, so to speak, he would have to win a national title. I don't know how you get on that pedestal at this point without that piece of hardware.
Lawton Swan joining us on the show here. Lawton, when we were talking best and worst case scenarios, I think one of my worst case was a second year in a row of a quarterback controversy at Clemson. However unlikely that might be, it would see Cade Klubnik not living up to what we thought he was going to be, kind of having a repeat of the DJ Uiagalelei situation, having a repeat of having to go to a true freshman in Christopher Vizina. What are you seeing just about Christopher Vizina's development as the backup there in Clemson? Is he showing you positive things?
Yeah, I think it's still to be determined, quite frankly. I think they are going to avoid playing Vizina at all costs. And I'm not saying that Paul Tyson, who transferred in, is going to be the go-to and the backup, but I would assume that once he's healthy and ready to go, that'll be the case. But yeah, I mean, if it comes down to that, right, there's questions all over the place, because one, that would mean there's been a misevaluation on Cade Klubnik. I think you kind of saw, though, last year with the spark that he brought the team against North Carolina, that's probably not likely. And then I think there were flashes in that game against Tennessee in the Orange Bowl where you saw that youthful inexperience. And I think a lot of Clemson fans, and rightfully so, were thinking, well, why didn't he play a little bit more in the season so that he had experience at the back end for a big game like that when you didn't have DJ Uiagalelei on the roster? I mean, I'm gonna take Dabo Swinney's word that the goal will be to play Vizina as little as possible, which means that I would just venture a guess that he's going to end up being third on the depth chart coming into the season, and they're going to do everything they can to minimize the number of times he's on the field because of the fact that they don't have anybody committed in the upcoming cycle at quarterback.
Lawton, I'm a guy who was routinely frustrated by black and white thinking that people have, good and bad, no shades of gray. Yet when I evaluate the mark of success for Clemson's season this year, it is just that. I do not believe an ACC championship that falls short of the playoff is going to be viewed as a success, because that's 3 consecutive seasons of missing the college football playoff. Are you with me on this, Lawton? Is it, in fact, playoffs or bust?
It feels like that a lot, right? But when you hear the message that Dabo Swinney, and I don't know if you got a chance to sit down with him or not, the ACC kickoff, but I watched his time at the podium. I watched his 2 interviews on the ACC network. If you ask Dabo Swinney the question, he's going to steer the conversation to the track he wants to be on. And the thing that he consistently talks about is how, that's not what they judge themselves on, right? They've got their criteria in place. But from the fans' perspective, Mark, from what you see in the state of college football, where Clemson was to where they currently sit, I think fans still believe that it is and should be college football playoff or bust. You talked about the schedule. The Tigers should be favored in every single game this season, barring some unforeseen injuries or circumstances that we don't know about right now. And so if that's the case, then obviously that would be the place that you would project this team. Now, the flip side of that conversation is, what if there's an injury, Will Shipley? What if there's something that happens, as Diesel kind of alluded to? What if something goes where Cade Klubnik's out or, doesn't perform to the standard that you expect? Then all of a sudden some of those things shift. But the fans, the orange-clad fans of Clemson Tiger Nation, yeah, I think most of them believe that this should be a team that as you head into the back end of the season and potentially into the ACC championship, you're competing to get in to the college football playoff. And you know what? Last season, they were. And then I don't know if it was hubris or what got a hold of the thought process when Clemson got the safety and Carolina had to kick off, and then the Tigers ran a trick play, fumble, Gamecocks score, and that ends up being like a catalyst for South Carolina, a 5-point swing off of their goal line. But whatever happened in that moment for Clemson, in a lot of respects, turned the momentum in that ball game. And quite frankly, if they win that, Mark, we might be talking about Clemson sneaking in to the college football playoff a year ago. So that's where they expect to be. And I don't think it's wrong for the fans to have that expectation, even though Dabo Swinney will talk to you about, hey, it's game one, got to focus on Duke and then, win the opener and move through. That's for the players. That's how they've stayed in the position they are in. But fans, you guys, in my mind, have all the right in the world looking at this roster, looking at how they've recruited to believe that this is a team that should be in the college football playoff.
Lawton, something we've said on this show a lot, I think Mark was responsible for this one, is that Clemson's football program really needs to get past the feel-good players on the roster. The ones who talent-wise shouldn't be seeing significant playing time on elite football teams, but always do. It seems like Dabo Swinney's one of his elite talents is not listening to what the people around him say and doing what he believes is the right thing for the program. So do you see a feel-good narrative type of player emerging on this team in 2023, or are we going to see kind of a gap there this year?
No, I think so there's a certain prospect that Clemson wants. All right. And I don't think that there's any question about that. In this NIL transfer portal era, there are certain players that Clemson is going to pursue. And there are certain guys that may have a 5-star billing that when Clemson kind of does some initial intel on them, whether that's from a coach, whether that's from somebody local in the community or whatever, however they gain all their intel, that they're not going to bring in. So to me, the thought process is the players you get have really bought into the culture of what Clemson is trying to build. I think you see similar characteristics with Shane Beamer's program at South Carolina at this point. And there are other coaches around the country that are still kind of ingrained in that mindset of the academia side of college football. And so I don't know that it's necessarily that I can't remember the exact terminology you use to kind of qualify the players, but I think Clemson's, the roster that they put together, Diesel, there's a reason that you don't see guys transferring out to a large degree, and you don't see a ton of guys that Clemson is looking to bring in. It's kind of built with a good foundation, and that's what they believe in. And I think that's why they've got sustained success, even when you've got other programs that do maneuver quite a bit more in the portal, et cetera.
We got 60 seconds, Lawton. So can you explain this Florida State love that I'm not understanding? Like they're picked to win the ACC based on what, a 5-3 finish last year? In 30 seconds or less, can you make sense of that for me?
I think there's belief that some of what they did in the transfer portal is certainly going to help them. And I think that in order to get there, you got to buy in. That I've said this all summer, really, that Jordan Travis can't turn the ball over. If he turns the ball over, they're an average team. It's going to come down to how he plays, in my opinion.
Folks, he does a fantastic show, and he's managed to make a Clemson show successful, broadcast out of Columbia, South Carolina. How about that? Never say never. Lawton, we look forward to catching up with you in season, my friend. Congratulations on all of your success.
Hey, man, always appreciate it.
We do appreciate it very, very much. And coming up next, I can't believe how and why this isn't all anyone's talking about. It's Offsides in the Fan Upstate. So check this out, my friends. Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat is offering folks a chance to play him one-on-one. One-on-one. You can play Jimmy Butler one-on-one for $699. I actually think that's a pretty halfway decent deal, if I'm honest with you. I do. 71307 on the text line is where you guys can get to us. Let's see here. Mark, I saw a rumor the jump for Clemson, Florida State could happen as early as 2025. No, Mark, Clemson is never going to be an SEC member. Texter says, Mark, have you heard about the good old boy agreement that Florida and South Carolina had with the SEC, basically guaranteeing that they would never invite Florida State and Clemson because it would hurt Florida and South Carolina's recruiting? It's been widely known for many, many years. Perhaps that sort of gentleman's agreement took place, had some standing at one time. I think all those gentleman agreements have been flushed.
Texter, how can a low-key, behind-the-scenes gentleman's agreement be widely known? It just sounds like it is a widely spread rumor.
It is. So I actually think this is really interesting. You can play Jimmy Butler one-on-one for $699. Now,
steal, honestly.
Yeah, and that's if I had $699 lying around, I'll do that. I'd like to play Jimmy Butler one-on-one. Now, foolishly, Diesel, and I remember this because it was a heated argument. Heated. Back when I was a game tester for Madden 2000 EA Sports. It's in the game. When I was a game tester, everyone was laughing at me because I said, no matter who I play in one-on-one, I'm going to score. And they were laughing. They were laughing. If I played Penny Hardaway one-on-one, I'm going to score. There's nobody that's going to prevent me from scoring. And then here's what happened. I got to play one-on-one, okay, against a player on the University of Florida basketball team. And here's what happened, Diesel. You have no idea how much better than you these guys are until you play them. I could not get a shot off, okay? I couldn't get a shot off. So here's the question for you guys. They're body you up. They're in your face. And wherever you try to go with the basketball, they're there faster than you are. And so it becomes if the guy's 6'6" and you're 6 feet tall and he's quicker than you and stronger than you, it becomes very difficult to get a shot off. Now, the guy I was playing against at UF missed some shots. I was able to get some rebounds. But the question is, Diesel, who among us, Lonzo, Rob, yourself, or myself, because I think if Jimmy Butler played all of us one-on-one, I don't think any of us score a point. Okay.
No.
And I'm guys, I'm not awful. You know what I mean? I'm halfway decent, right? I think my senior year of high school, I could beat all the guys on our JV team, but I couldn't make the varsity basketball team because, it was in Florida. I was at a 5A school in Florida. You're not making the basketball team there. But I don't think any of us would score. Diesel, would any of us get a shot off that wasn't blocked?
No.
How would you go about doing that?
No, your only hope is to step on his foot, maybe make his shoe fall off, make him look down and think about it for a split second. Then he would untie his shoe, put his shoe back on, tie it, and then still jump up high enough to block you. He's that fast.
I don't think you guys understand. Believe me when I told you, I was guilty of the typical male chauvinism. No one's going to shut me out. That's what I said. No one's going to shut me out. Not only will they shut you out, you will not even have a shot that is not rejected.
He said, nobody paints baby in a corner.
That's it. That's it. Nobody does that to me. Does anyone out there think they could score a point on Jimmy Butler in basketball? Maybe we've got some D1 basketball players listening right now who believe they're actually quick enough to get a basket in, right? I'm telling you, I've tried this. It was the most humbling experience of my life. I went from no one can shut me out to there's no way I can get a shot off at the rim without it being rejected right back in my face.
Now, there's street ballers, when you watch, when ESPN will occasionally put on street ball, the creativity and the way these guys are able to move, and you really you can't do that in the NBA professional level game. I feel like some of those guys will absolutely take a shot at Jimmy Butler. Absolutely. Because you never know, NBA talent scouts are desperate to find talent wherever they can get it. So maybe there's like some elite level street baller out there. I mean, that was the whole premise of Adam Sandler's movie where he went and found the player in Spain or something. There was a whole. Did you see that movie?
Sure.
I forget what it was called. But that's the whole point. Is you go out there and you put them against guys like that, and their creativity and fluidity and that style of game is not what they play in the NBA. So yeah, somebody's going to take a shot at this, and somebody might actually beat them.
So, folks, shifting gears here, there is something, okay, that happened last week, and for the life of me, I can't understand why this isn't all anybody's talking about. And so that partly is the question here. You know, why isn't this all anyone is talking about? I don't get it. You know, Diesel and I were saying off the air on Friday, why isn't this a bigger deal? But we're going to make it a deal on our show, okay? And we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about it right now. Are you guys, yeah, you feel me? You guys coming with me on this journey? You guys, or did you guys hear by any stretch? Is that all? Is that?
No, that's not all.
Oh, okay. I thought for a minute.
I'm drip feeding it. Okay.
Okay. I thought for a minute.
Teasing what it is we're going to talk about.
I thought I screwed up the audio file there for a minute. So anyway, guys, did you hear the news about aliens last week? Did you hear the news about aliens last week? This, folks, this ends all debate. It ends all conjecture. The little green men are here, and they're coming for you, and they're coming for me. All right? Now, you can laugh, and I can laugh, and isn't that funny? But number one, it's true. All right? We now have irrefutable evidence that it is. And if you're one of those people like myself that has been made fun of their entire lives for watching those alien shows and hey, Mark, you see little green men? Now we have the damn proof that they're here. That's true.
We don't have proof. We have whistleblower testimony in a congressional hearing. Do we know for a fact?
Yes.
Wait. Do we know for a fact that whistleblower was under oath?
Yes.
Okay.
We do. So under oath, Dave Grush from the U.S. Intelligence Agency. But the first step here, ladies and gentlemen, this is again, why isn't this what in the hell all anyone is talking about? You know, because this has been, it's like there was a time in our lives where you believed in the Loch Ness Monster more than you believed in aliens. And then as time went by and the number of sightings came up and this increased exponentially, Diesel, with everyone's phones, when only very few people had camcorders, when we were kids. You had very few of these sightings.
And they were super low definition also, so they were easily refutable.
Right.
Because they were low def.
But what really got Ray Rice in trouble when the video came out, right? What really got the alien naysayers in trouble? When we all had camcorders in our hands on a daily basis. That really put this to rest. And I'll never forget this, folks. When I was hosting Booger and Ryan in Tampa, and the three of us, myself, our sports update person, Roller Girl, and producer Kyle, were looking at Booger with disbelief when he said he didn't believe there were other life forms. And he wanted to preface it by saying, look, I believe there could be water or bacteria, but a level of life that's like a rabbit or something, no chance. No chance. And I said, bro, do you realize how bad, do you realize how small-minded that is? And I love Booger. Okay, but do you realize, think of the vastness of the universe. Our little pinprick globe of Earth is the only one that has life. Remember, I hung out with a NASA astronaut in Houston, and he said the height of American arrogance is the belief that we are the only life form, that we are the only planet that has life. When you get up there to the space station, and these are his words to me, when you get up there to the space station and you see what we see, you realize that the impossibility is not that there's life on other planets. The impossibility is that there isn't. And I'll never forget that he said this to me. Now, yeah, Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, they're here. They're here. And I understand that according to some interpretations of the Bible, Diesel, like this stuff is considered blasphemous. It's not blasphemous, ladies and gentlemen. Look, I believe in God. This is science, okay? This is understanding odds and understanding planets and understanding life. It was senseless to many of us for anyone to say that there wasn't life on Earth. But now we have, Diesel, under oath, U.S. intelligence official David Grush, who spoke to a Congresswoman, Nancy Mace from Charleston. Okay, spoke to Nancy Mace from Charleston.
It's pronounced Charleston.
Charleston. Oh, there you go. So, folks, like, put everything to bed, put everything to rest. Just listen to this clip, and there are no more questions. Here you go.
Which clip do you want me to play?
Let's play Nancy Mace 1. Okay, Nancy Mace 1. Here is Nancy Mace talking to Dave Grush, former U.S. intelligence official.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what did we hear there? We have the craft. We have the bodies inside the craft. Those bodies were not human. Ladies and gentlemen, how is this not all anybody is talking about? Like, what are we doing here? Then we have clip number 2, all right, in which Dave Grush, U.S. intelligence official, is speaking to another congressman, and he is asked, they use the phrase UAPs, which are alien aircraft or unidentified flying objects. Have these UAPs or UFOs or aliens ever caused harm to us? Here is Dave Grush's answer.
Point you had said that there has been harmful activity or aggressive activity. Has any of the activity been aggressive, been hostile in your reports?
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured. And the activity, and I got
by UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both.
Okay,
Yeah.
So there has been activity by alien or non-human technology and or beings that has caused harm to humans.
I can't get into the specifics in an open environment, but at least the activity that I personally witnessed, and I have to be very careful here because they tell you never to acknowledge tradecraft, right? So what I personally witnessed myself and my wife was very disturbing.
Okay, so we have been harmed. We have been injured. We have witnessed very disturbing, scary behavior. Okay, Diesel, what you and I are guilty of right now, when we're both doing it, is nervous laughter. We're guilty of nervous laughter.
No, what I'm laughing at, Mark, is that this David Grush will not, refuses to get specific in an open public forum. Why, bro? Like, you are literally telling Congress in an open forum, we have alien bodies. Why can't you be specific? I think this is a reason why a lot of people are so skeptic in these scenarios. Number one, I guarantee you this is not the first person who's ever sat in front of Congress and said aliens are real, right? And been full of crap. But if you have proof, back it up, man. Like, we've had enough of, talking out of both sides of the mouth. Like, oh, I can reveal this to you if we talk about it in a closed meeting. Like, isn't that what you're here to say publicly?
Man, Diesel, he's got to follow certain protocols. Didn't it sound like, though, like he was overstepping his bounds and then trying to retract? a couple of times now. He sounds like I really shouldn't be saying this, but here's what we know. All right. So let's put this together, folks. And then we will open it up to you guys via 844-326-3663. The text line 71307. Start your text with the word fan and away you go. Here's what we now know from a U.S. intelligence official. We have downed alien spacecraft. We are in possession of that. We are in possession of the pilots of that alien aircraft, which were located, procured, and are not human. We also have had government officials who have been injured by disturbing alien behavior. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I ask you, how is this not all anyone is talking about? You know what I mean? Like, how have we not all stopped what we're doing? Used to be back in the day, in the 80s, early 90s, we all watched the same channels. Are we so lost, Diesel, like in our own phones, in our own world, that we can't have this one topic anymore that unites us all? And we're like, holy bleep, did this just happen? Because, folks, this is happening around us. Did we just change the opinion of anyone out there?
Dan B says pictures or it didn't happen. I have proof, but can't show you. Get out of here. And here's the thing, Mark. Dan B, he's a pilot. He's up there in the air. And, you can't talk about the likelihood that somebody who's a pilot should see something. But he's up there at 36,000 feet. We're down here on the ground.
Let's get the text line going, guys. 71307. Start your text with the word fan, and away you go. Let's see here. Texter says, like Mitch Hedberg says, it's not that getting a picture of Bigfoot. This is the problem. It's that Bigfoot is blurry. Well, Texter, so what you guys are saying is...
I love that bit.
Yeah,
It's a great bit.
What you're saying is picture it didn't happen, right? And what I'm saying is I trust our U.S. intelligence official. You're saying that you need to see the video of Ray Rice punching out his girlfriend. I'm telling you, I know it happened. Okay? Like, there's enough known to be able to say it happened. I never understood why everyone freaked out after the video came out. The video showed what we knew already happened. You know what I mean? So, like, the U.S. intelligence official is not going to get up in front of Congress under oath and spew BS. Would I like to see the picture of the craft of the aliens? Hell yeah, I would. Because we have no idea what they look like, right? No idea. But I'm certainly not going to throw out, conspiracies, or I'm not going to throw out skepticism that a guy under oath is telling a lie. But when we come back, we'll share with you some other testimony that is not David Grush, but a military pilot. Okay? So the pilots out there should appreciate this. Texter says nobody's freaking out because it's all BS. Please don't tell me you two believe this nonsense. Texter, what do you believe? Do you really believe there isn't alien life at this point? What further evidence do you need? When did we become so mistrusting of our government officials? This is a U.S. intelligence official. You don't want to believe the president? Don't believe the president. You don't want to believe in vaccines? Don't believe in vaccines. But a U.S. intelligence official is not going to get up in front of Congress and lie about evidence or lie about intelligence that we have. It's incredible. It really is incredible. Y'all's doubt knows no bounds. Offsides continues right after this. the break, I can't believe how many skeptics and naysayers there are out there. You know, like our U.S. intelligence agency has proof, has evidence that this happened.
No, we have testimony that they have proof.
Right.
There's a difference.
Okay. But,
There's a
but
difference.
the U.S. intelligence agency is saying under oath, we have the evidence.
Okay.
Right. We are not entitled to that information. We are not entitled to that. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, you are not an intelligence official. I am not an intelligence official. So you can either choose to believe the U.S. intelligence agency or not.
Well, the U.S. intelligence agency doesn't necessarily have the best track record with being honest with the American public, do they?
I would say the track record has not been 100%. That is true. However, I have no reason to believe that they're lying here. No reason to believe that they're lying whatsoever.
I think, Mark, you have a problem with people's skepticism.
Yeah.
When you are asking someone to believe paradigm shifting, worldview altering on a global scale understanding of our place in the universe, questioning everyone's faith based on a guy saying, well, we've got the craft, we've got the bodies, but no, I can't really say anything about it. I can't show you anything. Like you're asking people to change their entire belief system because some guy that they've never heard of who works for a shadowy government agency says, I got something, but I can't tell you what it is.
Well, you're making it sound shady, Diesel. I mean, you're making it sound shady. These same people that are texting us right now believe in God. Where's the proof of God, Diesel? Where's the proof? Where are their pictures? Show me pictures.
Well,
show me evidence.
What we do have a lot of proof and evidence is the U.S. government lying to the people of the United States.
Well, we
if
also
you need proof in something, it's not proof that they're lying in this situation,
right?
But it is a suggestion and a track record of not being completely forthcoming.
But the people who killed Jesus, right, were guilty of the same skepticism. Show me your powers, right? When they were not shown those powers, they put Jesus to death, right? And so belief in Jesus requires something called faith. Now, like to me, testimony from our U.S. intelligence agency is proof. Now, you and I are not entitled to seeing the photos. We're not entitled to see that, okay? Just like you're not entitled to see pictures of Jesus, right? Of the actual Jesus.
Well, they didn't have cameras back then.
You're not entitled to it, right? You're not entitled to the evidence. That's what faith is. That's what belief is. But, I take it as a curveball, a big-time curveball that, like, we've got agencies saying that we've got this information, okay? And you're saying pics or it didn't happen? You're not entitled to the pics. I got one more clip here that I want to share with you.
Are you saying, Mark, that the thousands of images that have shown up in trash tabloids over the years of aliens and other cryptids, you're saying that every single one of them was made up, but this is real?
Diesel, I'm saying this is not tabloid information. This is the people who have the information saying we've got the information. Okay? Like the Area 51 people that have been featured in all the movies. These are the people who have the information saying, yes, we have the information. And they're doing it under oath. So, like, to me, this isn't Billy Bob in Arkansas with a camera. This is, we've got the aliens, we've got the craft, we've got them, we have biologics of all of this. And at some point, I just feel sad for people for like what they're not able to comprehend or what they're not able to believe. But I do want to share one more clip with you here. And this is a different gentleman. This is a Navy pilot, David Fravor, who details his encounter with a UFO. And so this is part of the same hearing on this stuff. So you have multiple people. And here is Navy pilot David Fravor. If we respect our military, right, do we respect what David Fravor is saying here?
On this day, we were scheduled for a 2v2 air-to-air training with the USS Princeton as our control. When we launched off Nimitz, my wingman was joining up. We were told that the training was going to be suspended and we're going to proceed with real-world tasking. As we proceeded to the west, the air controller was counting down the range to an object that we were going to, and we were unaware of what we were going to see when we arrived. The controller had told us that these objects had been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up. For those who don't realize, above 80,000 feet is space. We arrived at the location at approximately 20,000 feet, and the controller called merge plot, which means that our radar blip was now in the same resolution cell as the contact. As we looked around, we noticed that we saw some whitewater off our right side. It's important to note that the weather on this day was as close to perfect as you could ask for off the coast of San Diego. Clear skies, light winds, calm seas, no whitecaps from waves. So the whitewater stood out in a large blue ocean. All four of us, because we were in F-18Fs, so we had pilots and Wizzo in the back seat, looked down a small, saw a white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water like a ping pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings. As we started clockwise towards the object, my Wizzo and I decided to go down and take a closer look with the other aircraft staying in high cover to observe both us and the tic-tac. We proceeded around the circle about 90 degrees from the start of our descent, and the object suddenly shifted its longitudinal axis, aligned it with my aircraft, and began to climb. We continued down another 270 degrees, nose low, where the tic-tac, or we considered 270 degrees to where, and we went nose low to where the tic-tac would have been. Our altitude at this point was about 15,000 feet, and the tic-tac was about 12,000. As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingman, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also. We immediately turned back to see where the whitewater was at, and it was gone also. So as you started to turn back towards the east, the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cat point, roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute. You can calculate the speed." We returned to Nimitz. We were taking off our gear. We were talking to one of my crews that was getting ready to launch. We mentioned it to them, and they went out and luckily got the video that you see, that 90-second video. What you don't see is the radar tape that was never released, and we don't know where it's at, of the active jamming that the object put on an APG-73 radar. And I can get into modes later if you're interested.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen. So, again, I can't force you to believe anything. My frustration is based on the fact that you have eyewitness testimony, right? People are found guilty of murder with eyewitness testimony. Jurors are relied on to be telling the truth in eyewitness testimony. I have a situation like Graham Neff telling me on the sideline that if Brad Brownell doesn't make the tournament next year, he's going to lose his job. I ask, can I share that? I share that. And I got to deal with Yahoo saying, I don't believe you unless I hear it from Graham Neff himself. Like, well, I'm telling you what just happened, right? I get scoops. Clemson and Florida State reached out to the SEC. Maybe my source got it wrong, but I'm sharing with you what my source is telling me, and I hear Mark Ryan on air is lying. There's, you guys can be skeptics of anything, right? But realize you do have a faith in something that you have never seen or believed or witnessed before. You do have a faith. You believe in that, but these people are lying, right? Look, so all I can tell you is that's a Navy pilot. Do you believe in him or not? Our U.S. intelligence agency is speaking. Do you believe in them or not? I'm not going to make you believe them. I can't say anything to make you believe them. If they decide not to release the photos, you may never believe them. All right? But you are living a miracle right now. Each and every one of you are a miracle. And you're saying you don't believe in something that is foreign to what you can accept. Blows my mind. Absolutely, positively blows my mind. Texter says, really thought you were going to bring up Ohtani's complete game one-hitter and 2 RBI doubleheader. Texter, that was a big part of the show on Friday. That is old news now. Texter says, we have no proof. I have a unicorn at my house. I'm not going to show you those, so you'll have to trust me. Sounds like the story of Jesus Christ. Let's see here. Bro, the U.S. intel is hiding so many things from us. I think they're strategically leaking this to warm people up to the idea before they drop all of the info. That's a great explanation, Texter. I mean, that's could be exactly what they're doing. They don't want to freak everybody out, So they're going to have a trickle of information come out before all of it does.
Which is exactly the plot to the movie Paul. I was telling you all about it on Friday. Did you watch it over the weekend?
I did not get to see
Oh,
that.
you're going to love it.
I did not get
It's
to see
got your
that.
boy. It's got Seth Rogen.
Yeah. I'm not saying Texter says that UFOs aren't real, but I feel like there's plenty of other countries other than the U.S. that would show bodies of aircraft if they had it so they could be the first ones to prove it. Well, Texter, like, look at the word you're saying. I feel like. Like, you feel like. No offense, but what are your credentials? I've got a Navy pilot. I've got a U.S. intelligence officer. What are your credentials? Let's see here. So let's see. Texter says, I have zero trust in our government. Are you saying that Congress doesn't lie? It's all they do, et cetera, et cetera. Guys, boy, we are in a rough place if we can't, they're telling you they've got the craft. You don't believe they have the craft. They're telling you they have biologics, meaning they have life form. You don't believe that they have life form. I like, short of showing you what they have, I don't know what else they can do. But I'll tell you what happens whenever you show the doubters proof. They get quiet real fast. To me, hearing that serves as proof, right? I mean, that serves as the proof.
Or they say, I don't believe your proof. I see what you've presented, but I don't believe that either. Madcraft says, I love how Diesel's take on this is to stay as neutral as possible. No, my Madcraft, my take on this is to mess with Mark Ryan because he's getting really frustrated.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is.
Dan B says, or it's a wag the dog thing. Look over here while this other thing we're doing happens over there.
Yeah, a little sleight of hand, maybe. I think the best text we got on this was the texter saying they're trickling the information so they don't shock you all in one day.
Not the guy who says he's got a unicorn in his backyard?
Yeah.
I don't have a unicorn, but I do have a horny horse.
I'm down. All right, guys, 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us on the show. To that point, once they release the picture of the aircraft or the picture of the biologics, you're going to tell me that also is doctored, that also is not real. If you don't see it in your backyard, it didn't happen. Yet just about all of you believe in Jesus Christ, self included. We believe in much that we haven't seen. All right, we have got our interview with Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show coming your way next, right here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7:00 p.m. this afternoon, man. Wonderful to have you guys with us. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your afternoon. Well, since the last time we convened, South Carolina has gotten a few commitments. My sense is that Beamer got a little tired of being shut out, so he accepted some 3-stars. They hurt the blue chip ratio, but at least it gives the Gamecock contingent the crumbs that they've been looking for. Now, 8 out of 14 commitments hit the blue chip ratio, but the Gamecocks are sitting there just inside the top 25 at number 24. And Chris Phillips joins us right now on the show. Good afternoon, Chris. Did the recent commitments pacify the Gamecock, the rabid Gamecock fan base in any way?
Mark and Diesel, first things first, appreciate you guys having me on. Impatience is the word that I think I would use, and maybe a little bit unsettled is another I would use to describe the Gamecock fan base right now in regards to recruiting. You know, I think everybody understands the big pieces that are still out there. Daniel Hill, the running back, Dylan Stewart, of course, the fantastic edge, even a guy like Jalewis Solomon, who was on campus over the weekend at the cookout, some others as well. And I think there's reasons to be optimistic and believe those guys are going to fall here in the near future, next couple of weeks. But you know, as the summer has come and gone and fall camp begins on Friday and we go into the month of August, you know, this has been somewhat of a subdued summer, Mark. I mean, call it for what it is compared to years past for South Carolina when they've done most of their damage in the months of June and July. Again, some of that I think is just purely a timing issue because a guy like Dylan Stewart has not announced yet. A guy like Daniel Hill is announcing, we know, late in August as well. So I think a lot of their big pieces, they landed early on, and their bigger pieces are coming later in the process as well. As you know, Mark, as long as you have it all figured out by December, that's really all that matters. But the commitment they got yesterday, Zymarian Lang, the wide receiver from down in Florida, he runs a 4.31 40-yard dash, so they feel really good about him. You know, beat out schools like South Florida for his services. I believe Pittsburgh was the other. They were the other big player in that one as well. They feel good about him. They needed to get someone after. Unfortunately, it sounds like at least they're going to swing and miss on Jonathan Paylor, who was at NC State over the weekend, a fantastic athlete out of the state of North Carolina, a 4-star kid. That's probably going to go there. So, you know, listen, Mark, I think South Carolina is just fighting some recruiting battles. They're fighting some NIL battles, and they're hitting on some, and they're missing on some. And hopefully at the end of the day, they hit on more than they miss on. And, you know, really landing Dylan Stewart and Daniel Hill, those are the two big ones for me, Mark, because, again, those are not only a 4-star and a 5-star. They're both at positions of need for South Carolina. One, of course, a running back, and the other Dylan Stewart being an edge player. So impatience, again, Mark Ryan, is the word I would use to describe the feeling of Gamecock Nation right now when it comes to recruiting.
Chris, you can't say every position because that's kind of the obvious answer here. But, you know, is there a player position or a group that depth is really, really thin? And, you know, because sometimes, you know, you have every plan to pick up 3 or 4 guys at linemen in this class. And for whatever reason, only one of the guys commits or none of the guys commit, and you find yourself scrambling. Is there a place where South Carolina just really cannot miss?
Yeah, Diesel, listen, that's a great question, a great point you bring up. Edge and running back are those two positions. And again, we bring on J.C. Sherbert every single week on Tuesdays from 24/7 Sports to talk recruiting, to talk Gamecocks, et cetera. But he mentioned this actually, guys, a couple of weeks ago. I posed the question to him, hey, like, what guys does South Carolina need to land in order for the class to be successful? He said, Chris, if they don't address these areas and get their numbers right in these areas, it won't matter what the class is ranked. The class will not be considered a success. So, you know, we talk about the running back position, it being such a question mark going into the season. There are so many questions, not enough answers. You lose a couple of guys out of that room this year, and you'll really only have a guy like a Dontavius Braswell and a Mario Anderson to try to answer those next year. Then you look at the edge position, man. I mean, they're hurting there as well when it comes to quality bodies. So I think the top two, running back on the offensive side, edge on the defensive side, those are the two areas they have to address in this cycle.
Chris, so I heard what you just said. No matter what the recruiting ranking is, they don't address these positions. It's not going to be viewed as a success. But do you have a number in your mind in terms of ranking that the fan base would be appeased by? Is that number like number 12 Is it number 18? What is that number?
If I'm guaranteeing 100% or as close to 100% as possible, Mark Ryan, because as you and I both know, that's just impossible to get that satisfaction rate. I would say anything within a top 15 class would make this fan base very, very happy. I would be satisfied with top 20. I don't think that's a bad class by any means, but I think after the way you started, obviously, if you're outside of the top 20 after you were ranked 5th just a couple of months ago, I feel like that would be kind of a tough pill to swallow, after such a hot start. But I think anything obviously inside the top 15, I think you're really excited. I think anything inside the top 20 is a success because, again, you just have to keep in mind it's just year 3 of Shane Beamer. I mean, just bottom line, if you would have told me 3 years ago Beamer was going to be recruiting at a top 15 or a top 20 level back-to-back years, you were 16th last year. Let's just say you did that again, Mark, and you finished 16th. I don't know how anybody could turn their nose up at that. And South Carolina hasn't had that type of consistent success on the recruiting trail in quite some time. So I think as long as you can finish top 20, that's a success. If you really want to guarantee the satisfaction of the entire fan base, I think a top 15 finish would do that.
Chris, what are your predictions? And if you're hearing anything, I understand, off-season workouts, camp hasn't started for anybody yet, about Spencer Rattler's decision-making development. Obviously, we saw a lot of times last year where he was throwing into multiple coverage, and he's got that gunslinger mentality, and he has supreme faith in his ability to make those passes. But that's the nature of poor decision-making. You have the faith that you can do it, but you can't necessarily do it in that scenario. What are you hearing about his development in the offseason, about making better decisions?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Spencer Rattler is very aware of what his shortcomings were last year. We heard him talk about that at SEC Media. He's talking about sometimes I trust my arm too much, right, when we saw him sort of force the ball into coverage. But it's one of those things where you want him to be himself because him being a gunslinger and kind of playing freely is what makes him so good. So, I've heard the decision-making. Listen, it's improved. I mean, it's something he's working on constantly and kind of the normal off-season chatter, right? I mean, this is best shape of my life season. Everybody's really good right now. Nobody's lost a game. Nobody's fumbled the football. Nobody's thrown a pick. So, admittedly, guys, I take what I hear at this time of year with a grain of salt. I mean, I just think that, what you hear coming out of fall camp, I think there's some things you can learn. You can read between the lines and learn about these football teams, but I don't think you can draw really any hard conclusions. But I think one of the things we haven't talked about, Diesel, is going to help Spencer Rattler is just year 2 in the SEC and kind of knowing what he's getting himself into. He was going from the Big 12 to the Southeastern Conference, and that is a major jump. I mean, that's not some small jump because they don't play defense in the Big 12. So I think him knowing now, okay, this is the speed of defenses. This is what I can expect. This is what will happen if I do this, if I make this decision, maybe something I could get away with at Oklahoma, I'm not going to be able to get away with here. So, I think he's very self-aware of what made him successful and what his shortcomings were last year. And by all accounts, he's taking steps forward to improve on that and, have the best season of his collegiate career.
We did best and worst case scenarios earlier on the show today, Chris, and I said for South Carolina 5-7 and 9-3. I expect Gamecock fans to be annoyed by the fact that my best case scenario for the Gamecocks is the worst case scenario for Clemson. Okay, 9-3 and 9-3. That said, as you know, Clemson plays in the All Cupcakes Conference. South Carolina plays in the best conference in all the land. Where are you best and worst case scenarios? Is that about where you're at?
So it is for the most part, Mark. I am 5-7, my worst case scenario. And by the way, for people out there listening that don't realize, when you define worst and best case scenarios, it's not as simple as 0-12, 12-0. We're talking realistic best case and worst case. I've got 5-7 worst case, Mark. Of course, that's, maybe the injury bug hits. Dowell Loggins isn't the answer at OC. The defense takes a step back. The offensive line's as bad as we think, et cetera, which I don't think is likely to happen, but 5-7 worst case. My best case, Mark, is actually 8-4. I think 9-3 is just too aggressive, man. If you're telling me South Carolina goes 9-3, they practically won every swing game they played. And I just don't think this team is there yet, Mark. I really don't. I'd love to be stunned. I'd love to be shocked, but 9 wins feels a little bit overly aggressive. My best case scenario, Mark, last year was 8-4, and I think last year's team was better than this year's team. So to be fair, I couldn't go above 8-4 my best case scenario. I'd love to be proven wrong in that manner, and I think they could get to 9 wins with a bowl win maybe. So if you want to include that, but I think 8-4 regular season would be my best case scenario when you factor in just that schedule, the challenge. It's a tougher schedule than last year, by the way. And I'll say this too, Mark. I think you're spot on with Clemson. Worst case scenario, I'd go 9-3. Best case, I would say undefeated, and they're back in the college football playoff.
Chris Phillips, the Spurs Up Show. Check him out on Twitter by the same name. At the Spurs Up Show is where you can get him. Great catching up with you, Chris. Thanks, pal.
Mark Diesel, appreciate y'all. Have a great week.
All right, you do the same. Chris Phillips coming up next on the show. We have got one of your favorite segments, the segment that more people ask me about than any other. Mark, we love the top 5 at 5, and it's next right here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? Hope your week is off to a fantastic start. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Genuinely and truly appreciate you guys making time for us in your afternoon. Be sure to hit us on the Odyssey app. If you've got a spotty signal, it's beautiful. Your car is wired to your phone, right? Bluetooth capability. Bring up the Odyssey app, put in the Fan Upstate, Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. You'll get us in crystal clear reception wherever you are. Each of the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've had people contact the show and say, listening to you guys on vacation via the app. Do you guys have the Odyssey app downloaded to your phone? It's AUDACY. That is the Odyssey app. Folks, I've got something that is really burning my brownies, staining my hands. That is, I need to share with you. I need your advice. Many days, we are the therapy for you. Today, I need you to be the therapy for me. Okay, I need advice coming up in our Onsides or Offsides segment. I pretty much think everyone's going to say this is Offsides, right? But I need your advice on how you would handle said situation.
Since when, Mark, has everyone telling you that you're wrong ever changed your mind?
Never has.
Right.
Well, but Diesel, the thing is, they're not going to say I'm offsides. They're not going to say I'm offsides, right? So if it was me offsides, maybe I got to change something. But this is not a situation where it's me that's offsides. I do think everyone is going to say it's offsides, though, and I need your advice. It is, my friends, time for us to do that jam. We call it the Top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate, Offsiders, the Top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the Top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
It was disgusting. It was awful. My heart broke that day.
5.
All right. So at number 5 today, what we have is Aaron Rodgers defending his offensive coordinator. Now, we shared with you last week that Sean Payton went nuclear on the previous coaching regime that he replaced in Denver. He went nuclear on Nathaniel Hackett, right? Sean Payton comes out and says that was one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history. Now, what Sean Payton said here, he comes out and he says he regrets his comments. Says he had on his Fox analyst hat, and when he made those comments, and he wasn't thinking in terms of the coaching fraternity. But not that he didn't mean what he said. He meant what he said. Nathaniel Hackett was guilty of one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history. Well, you might imagine, that really punctured Aaron Rodgers' air mattress. Does not like what Sean Payton said about his coach and fired back in this way.
Those comments were very surprising. For a coach to do that to another coach, my love for Hack goes deep. He's arguably my favorite coach I've ever had in the NFL. Just how he goes about his business with respect, with leadership, with honesty, with integrity. And it made me feel bad that someone who's accomplished a lot in the league is that insecure that they have to take another man down to set themselves up for some sort of easy fall if it doesn't go well for that team this year. I thought it was way out of line and inappropriate, and I think he needs to keep my coach's names out of his mouth.
Here's the thing. I got no problem with what Sean Payton says. That's his opinion. I've got no problem with Aaron Rodgers defending his own head coach. I've got no problem with there being beef, even though we're moving away from that as a society. Everyone in the NBA daps everyone in the NBA when they're done playing. They hug, they exchange jerseys. They never talk to you, the fans, but they've got a brotherhood, man. The hell with that.
What variety of pearls do you think that was that Aaron Rodgers was clutching right now?
Man, it was
because there are lots of types. There's Akoya pearls, cultured freshwater pearls,
probably a pearl
Biwa
necklace.
pearls, Tahitian cultured pearls, Akoya cultured pearls. blister pearls. There's lots of different types, Aaron. Which kind are you grabbing there?
Pearl necklace, Diesel. It was the pearl necklace all the way. No, look, we'll see what happens with the Jets this year. I think if they get Dalvin Cook, Diesel, they've got a shot, right? With Dalvin Cook, they've got a shot. We'll see if that all comes to fruition. Next up.
4.
Folks, I learned something new today, and I learn something new all the time. I learned that even with the U.S. intelligence agency testifying under oath to Congress, that they have found, they have procured alien spaceships, and they have the quote-unquote biologics of those spaceships, meaning the life forms that were piloting those spaceships. We are in possession of those. There's still folks out there that say, I don't believe it. Pics or it didn't happen. Yet all these people, or just about all of them, believe in Jesus without having pics or it didn't happen, right? So, like, to me, when we've got an intelligence official, and Diesel, if we could get the Nancy Mace clip number 1, okay? When we've got a U.S. intelligence official testifying before Congress and saying what he's saying, and we won't replay the second clip, which was the naval officer detailing his experience with an unidentified flying object. This object went 60 miles in under 1 minute, so you can calculate the speed there, right? I just want you to listen to this. We'll play 1 or 2 clips here. And this, to me, is irrefutable evidence that we are not alone in the galaxy. Here you go.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
Gotcha.
So how about that? We've got the ships. We've got the pilots of the ship. Next up in the audio rundown, it was asked whether or not the pilots of these UFOs have ever been harmful to us, have ever harmed any of our agents or military members. Here is how that question was asked and answered, again, under oath.
Point you had said that there has been harmful activity or aggressive activity. Has any of the activity been aggressive, been hostile in your reports?
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured, and the activity. And
by UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both.
Okay, so there has been activity by alien or non-human technology and or beings that has caused harm to humans.
I can't get into the specifics in an open environment, but at least the activity that I personally witnessed, and I have to be very careful here because they tell you never to acknowledge tradecraft, right? So what I personally witnessed myself and my wife was very disturbing.
Folks, I mean, that's under oath. U.S. intelligence agency. We have a clip from a naval officer about what he has seen. You know, there are a lot of folks who just want to live in a state of denial, and I choose not to be in that place. I choose to believe in and trust science. And I learned today that even if you have what is to me proof that this mystery that we've had our entire life has now been answered, people are not going to buy it. It's something I deal with all the time anyway, every day. You know, I speak to Clemson athletic director Graham Neff on the sideline. He tells me if Clemson basketball doesn't take the next step this year, we'll make a change at head basketball coach. His words to me. I say, Graham, can I share this? He says, yes. I share the conversation. People still say to me, I won't believe it unless Graham Neff says it himself. There's nothing you can do to make people believe. You don't have to believe, but I pray nothing happens to you from an extraterrestrial life form before you do come around to believing the obvious that we, my friends, are not alone. Next up.
3.
All right, at number 3, we hit up Clemson and South Carolina's best and worst case scenarios this year to start the show today. I have Clemson's worst case scenario being the same as South Carolina's best case scenario. That's not a slight. It means that Clemson plays in the All Cupcakes Conference and South Carolina plays in the best conference in all the land. But I have Clemson's best case scenario being 12-0. Why? Well, they're going to be favored in every single game. Despite the fact that they'll be favored in every single game, their odds are that they won't win every single game. I get that. But believe it or not, folks, I actually do believe there are 6 losable games on Clemson's schedule. Florida State, at Miami, at NC State, Notre Dame, North Carolina, and at South Carolina. 6 losable games. But I'm going to say the worst case scenario is they lose half of those losable games. You know, maybe a Notre Dame, maybe 1 out of 2 Miami and North Carolina State, maybe either North or South Carolina, right? I don't see them losing to Florida State at home. I just don't. Maybe that is how this whole thing plays out, right? Worst case scenario. Best case scenario, I think, is a perfect 12-0 on the South Carolina Gamecock side of the ledger. I'm going to go 5-7 is the absolute worst case scenario for the Gamecocks. That would have them beating Furman, Mississippi State, Missouri, Jacksonville State, and Vanderbilt. Best case scenario on the flip side, I'll go 9-3. 9-3 would be a season with losses only to at Georgia, at Tennessee, and against Clemson. Best and worst case scenarios depending on how things play out. How do you guys see it? Best and worst case scenarios, Clemson and South Carolina. Best for Clemson involves Cade Klubnik becoming that dude in Garrett Riley's offense, clicking sooner than later. Best case for South Carolina means, again, new coordinator, Spencer Rattler, South Carolina, Dowell Loggins. That offense clicks quickly, and the line play defensively and offensively better than expected. Next up.
2.
The Athletic and Mike Sando have released their article of football quarterback tiers in the National Football League, interviewing coaches, general managers, and scouts anonymously. I know you guys want to roll your eyes at anonymously, right? But the reality is, folks, that's how you get people to be honest. You interview them anonymously. They're telling you, their coaches and their scouts, what more that can they do? So I have in front of me here Tier 1 and Tier 2, according to coaches and GMs of the National Football League. Tier 1 is Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and Justin Herbert. 5 guys in Tier 1. Here is Tier 2. Tier 2 has 7 quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson, and Kirk Cousins. Where's my beef? Justin Herbert hasn't won squat. Been in the league a few years, does not have a single playoff win to his name. You're going to have him in the top tier without a playoff win, really. Aaron Rodgers took a serious step back last year. All right, serious step back. He was 15th in quarterback rating. He was 18th in QBR. How do we know that Aaron Rodgers' skill set hasn't fallen off a cliff at this point? Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Tier 1, no argument there. But I would add Jalen Hurts, and I would knock out Aaron Rodgers and Justin Herbert. And to me, if you're telling me a quarterback is Tier 1, you got to be able to show me something tangible of value that he has accomplished. As to the Tier 2 guys, Deshaun Watson is number 11. We'll see. Can he recapture the form that he had pre-Massage Gate? Kirk Cousins, number 12, a little bit high for me. Matt Stafford, a top 10 quarterback. I didn't see that last year. I think Trevor Lawrence at number 8 is about right, but he is on the ascension. And I think Dak Prescott represents to me the lowest level of quarterback that you could actually win the Super Bowl with. He's just good enough, I think, to win the Super Bowl. if everything else is in place around him. And finally, I'm not sure how many of you guys realize this, but the U.S. women's national team is in a perilous spot, is in a bit of a precarious spot heading into their final game of the World Cup group stage that will be played at 3 a.m. in the morning. They're telling you it's tomorrow at 3 a.m. I can't figure out if a 3 a.m. game should be referenced as tonight or tomorrow. I can't figure that out. I know what it is technically. It's tomorrow, right? But I classify 3 a.m. as it's on later tonight, right? I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a little bit of a night owl. But folks, I will tell you this, that the U.S. needs a draw or a win over Portugal to advance to the group stage. Here's the problem. Portugal has been playing out of its mind, all right? Portugal has been exactly a goal worse than the U.S. women's national team thus far. They're ranked as the 21st best nation in the world. U.S. is ranked number 1. The problem is the U.S. hasn't played like the number 1 team, and Portugal has played far better than number 21. You could wake up tomorrow morning, and the U.S. women's national team could be eliminated from the World Cup in one of the most insane upsets in women's soccer history. They have not looked sharp in 2 games, right? They beat Vietnam. The U.S. did 3-0. Portugal beat Vietnam 2-0. The U.S. tied number 9th ranked Netherlands 1-1, right? Portugal lost to the Netherlands 1-0. Folks, I'm telling you, we're in a precarious spot here. The goal for the U.S. ladies is score a goal. Everyone will feel so much easier when they do, because Portugal only scored 2 goals against Vietnam, unlikely to score 2 goals against the Americans. You do not want to be in a 0-0 match in the 60th minute, needing to prevent Portugal from scoring in order to advance. Score a goal, batten down the hatches, move on with a win or a draw, and begin playing some sharp soccer is what we need from our ladies. I just don't think that many people are that concerned about the current situation, and they should be. Lose, and we're poof. We're done. Those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FAN-FONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook and on Twitter and on YouTube at The Fan Upstate, at Diesel on Radio, at Mark Ryan on Air. That's at MARC, Ryan on Air. But please do subscribe to us on YouTube at The Fan Upstate. Just click that red YouTube subscribe button. We check and see what you guys are saying on the text line here today. Mark, I know you don't talk boxing a lot, but that classic performance that Bud Crawford put on Saturday night goes without saying. He became one of the GOATs. Now 40-0, 32 KOs. Texter, again, I don't want to do pay-per-view to watch boxing, and they haven't done a good job letting us know who these guys are. They haven't done it. You know, I know there's a few names. If Diesel and I struggled to put together 5 names of active boxers, maybe we could do it. If it's not on network television, you've lost me, because I'm not doing the pay-per-view. Texter says, Mark, Congress and the CIA are not science. Also like lawyers, when are politicians lying? This wasn't, it was the U.S., it was a U.S. intelligence agency, Texter. And I don't see why they would tell you that they have a spacecraft and biologics if they don't. I would think it far more likely that they would tell you they don't have a spacecraft and biologics when they do. Okay? Like, think about this logically. Okay? Logically. They're going to tell you they have that when they don't. Let's see here. That government talking about UFOs. Looks like it could be Adam Gase's brother. His weird, whatever. Mark, you are such a homer. Get your head out of your gator tail. Florida State will beat Clemson badly in the ACC, has beaten the SEC numerous times. No, based on what, Texter? Like, based on what? Like, again, show me your evidence. What is the evidence you have that Florida State beats Clemson? Based on the game last year? Based on recruiting rankings? Based on record in the ACC last year? Based on what? Right? I saw South Carolina win at Clemson. I saw Clemson win very comfortably at Florida State. Very comfortably at Florida State. All right, my friends. Coming up next, what is one false narrative your rival pushes about your school? What is one false narrative that your rival pushes about your school? And it's oh so annoying. About as annoying as none of you guys believing, right, testament under oath by naval officers about UFOs and what they're doing. Ridiculous to me, man. That's next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
We're gonna push this to the next one so that we can do our goodbye here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, guys. We normally you just got a glimpse of a off the air conversation on the air. We like to move our live read from this segment off of the 5:15 break to the 5:30 break, just so that we have time to say goodbye to you and thank you for being here. Madcraft, JD Wyatt, Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, Dan B, the countless other guys who are in here throughout the day today. Thank you so much. Again, you know the drill. Get somebody new in here, man. That's how we grow this thing. That's how we keep it popping. That's how we keep this thing moving. It's been a blast. Thank you for all of your conversation on Mark's cockamamie alien stuff. That's good stuff too.
Guys, I got some tough love for you today. Please, please, please make sure we are not just chatting in here and ignoring the text line. Okay? We want the different platforms. You guys see it during the show. We're much more able to get to your texts on the air than we are to get to the YouTube chat. We love that you have the YouTube chat going. Okay? We love that you got it going. At the same time, we want you guys to be active on the text line as well so we can get your thoughts out on the air. All right? We appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow.